Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be teaching you how to make a crochet bomber jacket. As you know, I love me a good bomber, but sometimes you need something a little smaller, and that's where this beauty comes in. For this bomber, we kept it sleek, made sure there's some texture, and added a hood because hoods always make it better. Speaking of, if you're a fan of crochet hoodies, you are in the right place. We've got hundreds of modern crochet designs, including some bangin' hoodie designs, with more coming, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on with the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 704 grams of yarn, and that's 1,570 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 5 and 6 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us any TV or book recommendations. We've been watching this really cool show called The Food That Built America, and we have been loving it. It's all about business and innovation, and you get to see some yummy foods, so it's perfect for us. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this jacket started, we are all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 6 millimeter hook, and we're all going to start by making an even number chain that reaches from the base of our neck down to where we want the bottom of this jacket to be, so cropped or long. I want mine to reach just about where the top of my jeans are, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 12 or 30 centimeters, and that's going to be a total chain of 42. Now that we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain, and we're now going to do a half double crochet row. So yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and then we're going to half double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook. So bring our hook down into that chain, yarn over, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. There's our first half double. Let's do one more. Yarn over, into that following chain, pull through all 3. Continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain until we have 1 chain left. I've just made my way all the way down with my half double crochet row. I left my last chain, and now we're going to do an increase of 3. So all we're going to do is yarn over, and then into that last chain, insert 3 half double crochets. There's my first, there's my second, and then there's my third half double crochet. Now from here, each of our even number rows is going to be a half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. So to get started, on our row 2, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So our first 2 half double crochet rows are all finished up. Now we're going to get started on our row 3, or our first alpine stitch row. So from here, we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now every alpine stitch row is going to be an odd number row, and it's always going to be worked into the previous odd number row. So since we're currently working on row 3, each of our front post double crochets is going to be worked into row 1. And we're going to start with 1 front post double crochet into the first half double crochet from row 1, making sure that we aren't counting that chain 2. So what we're going to do is yarn over, find that first half double crochet, and then we're going to bring our hook underneath the body of that half double crochet, bring it through the other side. Once we have that, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then once we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to want to pull up nice and tall to get the same height as that chain 2. Now once we have the height, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our front post double crochet. Now each of our alpine stitches is going to be a front post double crochet and then a half double crochet, and that makes one set. So let's do the half double crochet. We're going to yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into that following stitch, insert with a half double crochet. Now that is our first set. Let's do another one. We're going to yarn over, find that following available half double crochet. We are going to be skipping that following half double crochet that we have from row 1 because this half double crochet counts as that half double crochet. And then into the following one, insert your hook underneath the body of that post, yarn over, pull through. Once we have those 3 loops, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then a half double crochet. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the following, insert with a half double crochet. Now all together we should have 2 sets. Let's just do one more together. Yarn over, find that following half double crochet from row 1, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, preparing for a half double, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, and then half double crochet into the following. We're going to continue to do our front post double crochet and half double crochet until we have 2 stitches left, and the last stitch that we should have done should have been a half double crochet. So I've just made my way all the way down with my alpine stitches. We should have 1, 2 stitches left, and the last stitch that we should have worked should have been a half double crochet. Now from here we're going to continue to do our alpine stitches, but close this row off with an increase. So how we're going to do that is doing our next stitch in our stitch sequence, which since we just finished a half double crochet, we're going to be doing a front post double crochet, so this is going to be per usual. Since we should have 1, 2, 3 stitches left into our row 1, we're going to be inserting our hook into that second to last half double crochet with a front post double crochet, yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, skip a stitch, which is that second to last stitch from our previous row, and then half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So this is also per usual, and we're going to be doing one more set. Now from here we're going to yarn over and then insert our hook, our last front post double crochet, into the last stitch that we should have into our row 1. So into that stitch, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then close off this row with a half double crochet into that same last stitch. So yarn over, and making sure that we're bringing our front post double crochet towards the front because we want that texture. We're going to find the last stitch from our previous row, which is this one right here. Insert your hook into there with 1 half double crochet. And our row 3 is all finished. Now from here, our row 4 or our following even number row is just going to be half double crochets. So chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch with no increases and no decreases. So our row 4 is all finished up. Now we're going to get started on our row 5 or our second alpine stitch row. To get started on every alpine stitch row, we are going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now when it comes to doing our alpine stitches, each of our stitches is going to be staggered from our previous alpine stitch row. So as an example, the first stitch that I did from my previous alpine stitch row was a front post double crochet. To get the texture that we want, we're going to be placing a half double crochet on top of that stitch, and then into that following stitch from our previous alpine row is a half double crochet, and then our front post double crochets will be worked into there, because if we work a front post double crochet into a front post double crochet from our previous row, we'll be creating a rib, which is pretty but not what we want for this piece. So like I said, we're going to start this row off with a half double crochet. So yarn over, insert our hook into the first stitch from our previous row with a half double. From here, our following row from our previous row is our half double crochet, so we're going to be working a front post double crochet into there. So yarn over, underneath the body of that following half double crochet from our previous alpine row, we're going to yarn over, pull through, still pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and this is our first set finished up for this row. Let's do the next one. Yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row because our front post double crochet counts as that stitch, into the following, insert with a half double crochet. And then to do our front post, we're going to yarn over, find our following half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row, insert your hook underneath, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. And we're going to continue to do this until we have 2 stitches left to work into, and the last stitch that should be worked should be a front post double crochet. So we have just worked our way all the way down with our alpine stitch row for our row 5. Now we should have 1, 2 stitches left. Now technically we have 1, 2, 3 stitches left, but remember that third to last stitch counts as this front post double crochet that we did. Now from here we're going to have to do another increase. So we're going to do the next stitch in our stitch sequence, which is going to be a half double crochet. So yarn over, you're going to skip that following stitch, which is the third to last, because this front post counts as that stitch, and then into that following stitch, which is the second to last, insert with a half double crochet. And now from here we're going to do a front post double crochet, so yarn over, and then into that last stitch from our previous alpine stitch row, we're going to insert our hook into there, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then we're going to half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So yarn over, into that last stitch, insert your hook with a half double crochet. Now the last stitch that we're going to be doing for this row, which is our increase, is going to be a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet. And we're going to combine it with a half double crochet because we need the last stitch to be nice and secure without having to add an extra stitch. So how we're going to do that is yarn over, and then into the last stitch from our previous alpine stitch row, which our last front post double crochet should be worked into there, we're going to insert our hook into there again, starting our front post double crochet. So just into that same last stitch, insert your hook underneath, pull through. Now we're going to pull up nice and tall, and we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 to get a total of 2 loops on our hook. Now from here we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, and then we're going to insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row, which our last half double crochet should be worked into. So you might need to separate your stitches a little bit, but into that same last stitch that our half double crochet is worked into, insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through. Once we have a total of 4 loops on our hook, we're just going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and that is going to be the last stitch for our row 5. Now from here, our row 6 is a half double crochet row. So just chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we have just finished up our row 6, which is just a half double crochet row. Now from here, it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until this point reaches the top of our shoulder, making sure that this first row stays at the base of our neck. Now I'm just going to do the following 3 rows with you guys, just to remind you guys how we're going to be doing the increases, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So since we're about to start our row 7, this is going to be a repeat of row 3. So at the end of this row, we are going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now like I said in one of our previous clips, each of our alpine stitch rows is going to be worked into the previous alpine stitch row, and the stitches are going to be staggered. So as you can see, the first stitch from our previous alpine row was a half double crochet. So we're going to do a front post double crochet into there. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. And then half double crochet into the following. And continue to do our front post double crochet and half double crochet until we have 2 stitches left. So we've just made our way all the way down with our row 7. We left 2 stitches. The last stitch that we all should have worked should have been a half double crochet, and now we're going to do our increase. So what we're going to do is the next stitch in our row sequence, which is a front post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and then find that following half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row. Now it might be a little small or a little tricky to see, but it is this half double crochet right over here. I'm going to insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we have to do our half double crochet, so yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, which is our second to last stitch, and then into the last stitch, insert with a half double crochet. And now we have 1 more set to do. So we're going to yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. Now this front post double crochet is going to be worked into the body of the half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row. So remember how we closed off our previous alpine row with a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet? We're going to find the body portion of the half double crochet. So this was the front post double crochet from our previous alpine row. We're just going to tuck our finger underneath and kind of pull it apart a little bit, and this is the body portion of that half double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook underneath just the half double crochet portion, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then I'm going to do a half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So making sure that our last front post double crochet is in the front, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double, and then into the last stitch from our previous row, insert our hook into there with a half double, and this is the same increase that we did for row 3, and now our row 7 is all finished up. Now our row 8, which is an even number row, is a half double crochet row, so chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we just finished up our half double crochet row, which was our row 8. We're now going to get started on our repeat of row 5. So since we're along the bottom end, chain 2, flip our work. Now our stitches need to be staggered from our previous alpine stitch row. Since the first one from our previous row was a front post double crochet, we're going to half double crochet into that first stitch, and then front post double crochet into that following half double crochet from our previous alpine row. Continue to do this until we have 2 stitches left. We have made our way all the way down with our row 9. We should have 2 stitches left, technically 3 stitches, but this last front post double crochet that we did counts as this third to last stitch. Now we're going to have to do our increase. So right after our front post double crochet, we are going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, half double crochet into that second to last stitch. And now we're going to do a front post double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we have to do 1 more set. So into the last stitch from our previous row, which should still be available, we're going to half double crochet into there. And then whenever our row closes off with a front post double crochet, we will always close it off with a half double crochet to secure it down. So to do that together again, we're going to yarn over, into that same last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through, pull up tall. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2. When we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row that our last half double crochet was in. So insert, pull through. Once we have those 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops. And that is that. Now we just did a total of 9 rows together. We're going to continue to do our repeat of rows 3 through 6 until this portion reaches the base of our neck all the way up until the top of our shoulder right over here. If you need timestamps for rows 3 through 6, those will be linked in the description, so go ahead and check that out if you need to. And you want to make sure that we're ending on an alpine stitch row as well. Now I'm actually all done with my neckline portion. Like I said, I have a total of 9 rows. My total width is about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to do our half double crochet row and our alpine stitch rows with no more increases and no more decreases until this reaches the tip of our shoulder. So let's get started on the following rows together. Right after our last neckline row, which should be an alpine stitch row, we're going to be doing a half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. So since we already know how to do that, chain 1, flip our work, put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end. So I have just made my way all the way down with my half double crochet row, and this is my first shoulder row. Now from here, we're just going to alternate between a half double crochet and alpine stitch row until we get the width that we need. Now this following alpine stitch row may be a little bit different for everyone, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it since we already know how to do our alpine stitches. Now since each of our alpine stitch rows need to be staggered from the previous row, since the first stitch from my previous alpine stitch row was a half double crochet, I will be doing a front post double crochet into there, my following stitch is a half double crochet, and then so on and so forth. Now if your previous alpine stitch row was a front post double crochet, you'll be doing a half double crochet and so on and so forth from there. And we are just going to continue to alternate between those 2 rows until this reaches the tip of our shoulder. Now, quick tip number 1, make sure that any row that ends on a front post double crochet that is combined with a half double crochet, and we do need to all end on an alpine stitch row. Once we have the width of our piece, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so I'm back with the entirety of my left front panel. Now I have a total of 17 rows, and my total width is about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and this reached the tip of my shoulder. I did do a chain up of 1 cut, so now let's do our other front panel. Now getting started on our right front panel, we're going to take our same category 4 yarn, and with our same 6mm hook, we're going to make the same chain that we started off our left front panel with. So I made a chain of 42 there, so I'm going to make another chain of 42 here. Now that we have our chain, we're going to get started with our half double crochet row. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And since our alpine stitches aren't reversible, we're going to have to start this row with an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with an increase. So into that chain, we're going to insert with 1 half double, into that same chain with our second half double, and then into that same chain with our third half double crochet. And now from here, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. And at the end of our row 1, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch for our row 2. Alright, so my first 2 rows for my right front panel is all finished up, and now we're going to get started on our row 3, or our first alpine stitch row. So from here, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. So same rules apply. Each of our alpine stitch rows is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1. So our row 1 is going to start with a front post double crochet. So we're going to find the first half double crochet from our row 1, making sure that we are not counting that chain 2, and then insert our hook into there with a front post double crochet. And since we are along the increase end, we're going to insert a half double crochet into the first stitch from our previous row. Now we would normally skip it because this front post double crochet counts as this stitch, but since we are increasing, just insert your half double crochet into that first stitch, and then we're going to do another set. Now this front post double crochet is going to be worked into that same stitch that our previous front post double crochet is worked into. So yarn over, into that same first half double crochet, insert your hook underneath that stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2. And now from there, we're going to need to half double crochet. So yarn over, into that following stitch from our previous row. Since this is our increase end, again, we are not going to be skipping a stitch just yet. We're going to insert our hook into there with a half double crochet. And this is what we should have so far. And now from here, we're going to do our alpine stitch row per usual. So our following stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. We're going to yarn over, skip that following half double crochet from our row 1 because this half double crochet counts as this stitch. Underneath the following half double crochet, insert your hook with a front post double. And from here, yarn over, preparing for a half double, skip a stitch into that following stitch, half double, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do our front post double crochet and half double crochet, making our way all the way down. This row is going to end on a half double crochet, so at the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch with no increases and no decreases, working our way back towards the increase end. And I will meet you guys back once we have 4 rows finished up. So we have just finished up our half double crochet row, or our row number 4. Now let's get started on our row number 5. So chain 2 and flip our work. So making sure that our stitches are staggered, we're going to start our row 5 with a half double crochet. So we're all going to yarn over, into that first stitch from our previous row, insert with a half double crochet. Now we need to start this row off with an increase. So into the half double crochet that we have from our previous alpine stitch row, we're going to insert with a front post double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into that first half double crochet, pull pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then from here we're going to half double crochet into that following stitch from our previous row. So yarn over. We typically skip a stitch because this front post double crochet counts as this stitch, but since we are increasing, we're going to insert our half double crochet into that following stitch, just like that, and then we're going to do another front post double crochet. Now our following front post double crochet will be worked into that same stitch that our previous front post double crochet was worked into. So yarn over, insert your hook underneath that same half double crochet, pull through, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And then from here we're going to do our regular alpine stitch sets. So yarn over. Now into that next stitch from our previous row, we aren't skipping a stitch again. Insert with a half double crochet. And then from here we're going to yarn over. Find the half double crochet from our previous alpine row. Do a front post double crochet into there. Pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then just to do one more set together, yarn over. We don't need to increase anymore, so skip one stitch from our previous row. Half double crochet into the following. Front post double crochet into that following half double crochet from our previous row. Now we're going to continue to do this until we reach the end of the row, and the last stitch that should be worked should be a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet. At the end of that row, chain 2, flip our work, and then we're going to do our row 6, which is a half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. I will meet you back at the end of the row. I've just finished up my half double crochet row, or my row 6. Now from here it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until we have the same amount of neckline rows as the left front panel. Now I'm just going to do the following 3 rows with you guys to make sure that we all have the increases down. So right at the end of the row we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. So since our stitches need to be staggered and that first stitch from a previous alpine is a half double crochet, we're going to do a front post double crochet into there. And since this is the increase end, we're going to half double crochet into that first stitch from our previous row. Just like that, that's our first set. Now we need to do another, and our first front post double crochet is going to be worked into that same half double crochet that our first front post double crochet was worked into. And then to close off this set, our next half double crochet is going to be worked into that following stitch from our previous row, so we will not be skipping a stitch just yet. And now from here, our alpine stitch will be the same as all of our other ones when we're not doing our increases. So yarn over, preparing for our following stitch in our stitch sequence, which is a front post double crochet. We're going to find that following half double crochet from our previous row, insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, preparing for a half double, skip one stitch from our previous row, and half double crochet into that following. And we're going to continue to do our alpine stitch till we reach the end of the row. The last stitch that should be worked into this row should be a half double crochet, so at the end of this row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put one half double crochet into every stitch, and then I'll meet you back to get started on row 9. So we have just finished up our 8th row, which was a half double crochet row. Now let's just get started on our row 9, then I'll let you do the rest on your own. From here, chain 2 and flip your work. So getting started on our row 9, which is a repeat of our row 5, we're going to start with a half double crochet into that first stitch. Next, we're going to find our first half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row, which this is mine right here, and then insert with a front post double crochet. Now into the next stitch from our previous row, since this is an increase, we're not skipping a stitch. We're going to insert our hook into there with a half double crochet, and then to do our increase, we're going to do a front post double crochet into that same stitch that our previous front post double crochet is worked into. So into that first half double crochet from our previous alpine row, there is a front post double crochet. Now right after that, into the next stitch from our previous row, we're going to do a half double crochet. So remembering we're not skipping a stitch just yet, just into that next stitch, one half double crochet, and then now we can do our alpine stitch per usual. So yarn over, find the following half double crochet from our previous alpine row, insert with a front post double. Next, to do our half double, we're going to yarn over, skip a stitch from our previous row, and then half double crochet, and then that's it. Continue to do this until we reach the end of the row, and the last stitch that should be worked into this row should be a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet. Now we're going to continue to repeat our rows 3 through 6 until we have the same amount of neckline rows as our left neckline. And then once when we do, we will be doing the same amount of shoulder rows as the left shoulder as well. So since we should all end on an alpine stitch row, chain 2, flip our work, and everyone's first shoulder row should be a half double crochet row. And then from there, just alternate between an alpine stitch row and a half double crochet row. Just remembering that each of our alpine stitch rows will be staggered from our previous alpine stitch row stitches. And then if we have an alpine stitch row that ends with a front post double crochet, make sure we combine it with a half double crochet. I will meet you back once we have the same amount of rows as our other front panel. Alright, so I am back and my right front panel is all finished. Just like my left, I have a total of 17 rows, and this width is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that we have both of our front panels all finished up, we can now put this off to the side because we're going to get started on the back panel. So getting our back panel started, we're going to take our same primary color yarn, insert our same 6mm hook, and now we're going to make an even numbered chain that reaches across our back from shoulder tip to shoulder tip. And the back panel is going to be worked horizontally. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 12 or 30 centimeters, and that's going to be a chain of 46. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do the first 2 rows for our back panel together, and they're just going to be half double crochet rows with no increases and no decreases. So start by blocking off that last chain. We're going to do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. We're going to yarn over and then insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, with a half double, and then put 1 half double crochet into every chain. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. I will meet you back when our row 1 and 2 are finished up. Alright, so our first 2 rows for our back panel are all finished. Now to get started on our row 3, that's going to be our first alpine stitch row, and this is going to be pretty simple. So just as a refresher, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and each of our alpine stitch rows is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. Since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our front post doubles into row 1. So yarn over, preparing for a front post double, and find the first half double crochet from our previous row, making sure that we're not counting that chain 2. We're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that half double, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Next, we're going to do a half double crochet. So yarn over, skip a stitch from the previous row because this front post double crochet counts as this stitch, and then into that next half double crochet. And since we already know how to do our alpine stitches, continue to do this to reach the end of the row. The last stitch that should be worked should be a half double crochet, and then at the end of the row, chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. I will meet you back right before we get started on our row 5. Alright, so we've just finished up our half double crochet row, and now we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows all finished up, and I'm just going to remind you guys how we're going to get started with our row 5. So from here, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now same rules apply as our front panel, so we're going to be staggering our stitches. So since the first stitch that I did from our previous alpine stitch row was a front post double, I'm just going to half double crochet into that first stitch, yarn over, preparing for a front post double, and then I'm going to find the half double crochet from my previous alpine stitch row and insert my hook underneath there, pull up nice and tall, pull through 2, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do our sets, making our way all the way down, and this row should end on a front post double crochet that is combined with a half double crochet, and then right after that is going to be a half double crochet row. Now we're just going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the back panel that we need. Now we do need to do certain numbers, so let's do a little bit of math together. So how we're going to determine the amount of rows that we need to do for our back panel, we're going to take the same amount of stitches as our last shoulder row from our front panel. So as an example, I have a total of 52 shoulder stitches. Now we are going to take that number and divide it by 3. 52 divided by 3 is 17. And then we're going to take that answer and then add it to itself. So 17 plus 17 for me is 34. So I will be doing a total of 34 rows. If you guys have any questions about that math, go ahead and leave a comment down below. But I'm going to do my 34 rows and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I'm back with the entirety of my back panel. The total height that I have is just about 13 inches or 33 centimeters. And just as a really quick tip, since the back panel is going to be seamed together horizontally, it is going to be a little bit shorter than the front panel, but that is completely fine. That's how we're going to get our little scrunch or our little muffin top over the bottom band. Now the next thing we're going to have to do is single crochet along the edges of our back panel to make seaming it a little bit easier. So right after I did a chain up of 1 and cut right after my last row, I'm going to be reinserting my hook into the top corner stitch, and now we're going to do a single crochet row down the side. Now we're going to start by inserting our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way down. Now a really quick tip that I have for you guys is the amount of single crochet rows that we have going all the way down to the bottom corner should be the same amount of stitches that we have for our last shoulder row within the front panel, or we could be just 1 stitch off. But since we need to have the same amount of stitches, if you are 1 stitch off, just add 1 extra single crochet into that last side row. So I'm just going to start by showing you how we're going to be alternating. So from here we're going to find our first side row, which mine is this first side half double crochet row right over here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with just 1 single crochet. Now I'm going to find my following side row, which is this right over here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So into there with 1, and then into there again with a second single crochet. And then that is a stitch sequence, making our way all the way down. Let's do this again. Find our following side row, which this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with just 1 single crochet, and then into my following side row, which is this one. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there is 1, there is 2, and then that is it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into, making sure that we have the same amount of stitches as our last shoulder row, which I have a total of 52, so I will make sure that I have a total of 52 stitches right here. And once when I do, I'm going to do chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything I just did here on the other side. Alright, so we are back and we have just finished up single crocheting along the edges of our back panel. And now we're going to single crochet across the top of our front panels to make it easier to seam. So let's put our back panel away. Now this is going to be the same for both of our front panels, so I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to do one of them. And we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of the front panel and making sure that it's within the shoulder corner and not the neckline corner. Now just like for our back panel, we're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row until we reach our first side row where we do a decrease, and then we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. So just for the amount of shoulder rows. So let's all start by inserting our yarn onto our hook. We're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're just going to do the first one together. So start by finding your first side row, which this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into there with 1 single crochet. Next, we're going to find our following side row, insert your hook into there with another set of 2 single crochets, and then that's it. Now we're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more shoulder rows left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then do the same thing that we just did here on the other side. Alright, so we are back and we have just finished up single crocheting across the tops of both of our front panels, and now we're going to seam the shoulders together. So let's grab our back panel. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, making sure that the texture for both front and back panel are faced outwards, and the neckline for the front panel is along the inside. And how we're going to do this is we are seaming it together, but we are also going to be working on our piping. So grab your secondary color yarn, insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now from here, we're going to be single crocheting across, making sure we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel and insert your hook. Next, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into that stitch, and all we're going to do from here is single crochet them together. Just like that, let's do this again. Into that next stitch, into that front panel, insert your hook into that next loop. Also insert your hook into that following loop, single crochet, let's just do one more, into the next stitch into the front panel, and then also next stitch into the back panel and single crochet everything together. And we're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, I am back and I have just finished up my shoulder seam, and now we're going to seam the sides. Now we are going to need to insert our stitch marker into an odd number stitch from the top, right where we want our armhole to be. And since this is going to be fitted sleeve, I inserted my stitch marker that is 1 stitch right underneath my underarm. So that is in the 25th stitch, and this length is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the texture that we have for the front panel and the back panel is faced outwards, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel. Now, really quick tip, inserting your hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and back panel may feel a little bit funny because our front panels are a little bit longer than our back panels, but it's completely fine. It'll all even out when everything is all seamed up. And once we have that, we're going to be inserting our secondary color yarn onto our hook. Pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure it, and this is going to be the same seam as the shoulder, so let's get this started. Start by inserting your hook into that first stitch into the front panel, also into that next stitch into the back panel, and then single crochet them together. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook into there, into the next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there, and single, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we reach our stitch marker stitch, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that we have everything all seamed up, we're ready to get started on our sleeve. Now for this piece, our sleeve is going to be done just a little bit differently. We're going to start our sleeve off not connected to the front panel. And just to let you guys know why we are doing it that way, we do need to do our piping around the armhole. Now we could just single crochet along the armhole to get the color that we want, but I actually want all of the piping to match. So I want it to be a little bit raised, like how our side seam is and also how our shoulder seam is. So I'm going to start by doing my first double crochet row off of the front and back panel. And then once we have that row completed, we can then seam it together. But don't worry, I'm going to do it all with you guys. So first things first, we're going to grab our primary color, and then we're going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our armhole. Now from the top of my shoulder seam all the way down to my side seam, just on one side, I have 25 stitches. So counting both of my sides together, the front and the back panel, I have a total of 50 stitches. So I'm going to be making a chain of 50. And right before we get started on that, I'm going to show you guys how to make a really long chain that doesn't get twisted. So let's insert our same 6mm hook into our primary color and start by making a chain of 5. Now that we have our chain of 5, we are going to pull a little bit of slack and then bring our hook out of our chain. From here, we're going to be inserting our hook into that first chain that we made, and then insert our slack loop onto our hook, and then we're going to pull. Now right after this, we're going to continue on with our chain per usual. So since I have 5, just continue with my 6th, 7th, 8th, so on and so forth until I have a total of 50 chains. Alright, so now that my chain is all finished up, we are going to pull our working yarn through that first chain that we made just to connect it. We're just going to pull that first loop underneath our second loop, and that's our chain without any twists. Now from here, our first row is going to be a double crochet row. So from where we're at, we're going to chain 3, and then start by putting 1 double crochet into every chain. So yarn over, insert your hook in through that first chain, pull through 2, pull through 2. And since we should all know how to do our double crochets by now, put 1 double crochet into every chain. Alright, so I've just made my way all the way around, putting 1 double crochet into every chain, and now we're going to connect our row. So making sure that our row isn't twisted, we're going to find that third chain that we made when we started this row. Here's 1, 2, 3. Into that third chain, insert your hook, and yarn over, pull through everything with a slip stitch to close off our first double crochet row. Now from here, we're going to chain 1, and for right now, we're just going to insert our stitch marker into our working yarn because we are now going to connect this double crochet row to the body portion. Now connecting just this one row to the body portion is going to feel a little silly, but just hear me out. Let's all start by grabbing our secondary color yarn, and then we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch, into our side seam that we have, and then into that first chain that we made when we started off our half double crochet row, but making sure it's on the bottom side of our working yarn, because this side is going to be where we're going to continue on with our sleeve. So around where our tail end is, we're going to insert our hook in through that loop. From here, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and then pull through both of those loops. And now from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything, and that chain one is just to secure. And what we're going to do from here is take our sleeve portion and just press it against the body portion that we have, and then we're going to single crochet them together. So making sure that we're kind of pinching the two edges together, we're going to find that first stitch into the body portion, and then into that first stitch into the sleeve portion, and then we're going to single crochet. So the seam itself is going to be the same as the side and the shoulder, so that is going to be pretty simple. Let's do the next one. Into that next stitch that we have, go ahead and insert your hook in through the front panel, and then in through the next stitch into the sleeve, go ahead and insert your hook in through there, and then single crochet them together. So this portion is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to continue to single crochet, making sure we're working in through both the body portion and the sleeve at the same time, making our way all the way around. Once when we do, we're going to slip stitch into that chain space that we made, do a chain up of one and cut, and then we can continue on with the sleeve portion. Alright, so I am back, and as you guys can see, I have just finished up seaming my first sleeve row to my body. I did do a chain up of one and cut, and now we're going to do the second row within our sleeve. So we're back to working right after our double crochet row. So right after we have that, we should already have a chain one, and then we're going to flip our work and then do a back loop slip stitch row. Now the ribbing that we're going to have for our sleeve isn't reversible, so we want to make sure that the slip stitch row that we're about to do is showing the back of it, because that's how we get that really fine ribbing. So I'm going to be working counterclockwise to show that. So getting started on this row, we're all going to start by finding that first available stitch from our previous row and insert your hook in through that back loop. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. There's our first back loop slip stitch. Let's do another one. In through that next stitch, insert your hook in through that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Yarn over, pull through everything. Let's do one more. Into that next stitch's back loop, pull through everything. And we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around. And a really quick tip that I have for you when it comes to doing our back loop slip stitch rows is make sure that we're not accidentally tugging too tightly on our working yarn. Otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. I will meet you back at the end of this row. So our back loop slip stitch row is all finished up, and we should have a total of 2 rows for our sleeve. Now from here, we're going to be decreasing into every back loop double crochet row until this gets nice and snug around our arms. So let's do the first row together. Our row 3 is all going to start with a chain 3 and flip our work, and we do want to make sure that we're flipping our work to make sure that we get the correct ribbing for the sleeve. And we're all going to start by doing 15 back loop double crochets. So yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row and insert your hook in through there with a back loop double crochet. There's our first. Let's do one more. Yarn over, find that next stitch's back loop, and then double crochet. I will meet you back when we have a total of 15 double crochets, making sure that we're not counting that chain 3. So now that we should all have our 15 back loop double crochets, we're now going to do a decrease of 2 back loop double crochets. So yarn over, into that following stitch's back loop, which should be the 16th stitch from this row, pull through to get 3 loops on our hook, and then also insert your hook into that following back loop, pull through. Once we have a total of 4 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through the first 3 to get 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is how we do our decrease of 2 back loop double crochets. Now from here, we're going to continue on with this stitch sequence, making our way all the way around. So 15 back loop double crochets, and then into the following 2 stitches, a decrease of 2. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that third chain that we made when we started off this row. Then right after that is going to be our back loop slip stitch row, because for our sleeve we're going to be alternating between a back loop double and back loop slip stitch row. So to do our back loop slip stitch row, chain 1, make sure that we are flipping our work because we want the ribbing, but we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, so absolutely no decreases into the slip stitch row. I will meet you guys back right after we finish our row 4, which is our slip stitch row. I am back. I have just finished 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Now I'm just going to remind you guys how we're going to get started with our back loop double crochet row. So for every back loop double crochet row, we're going to be doing a decrease, but how that's going to work is we're going to subtract 1 stitch from the main amount of double crochets that we did. So as an example, we started our previous double crochet row off with 15 back loop double crochets, and then we did a decrease. For the row that we're about to do, we're going to be doing 14 back loop double crochets, then a decrease. Right after that double crochet row is our slip stitch row, obviously, and then the following double crochet row is going to be 13 back loop double crochet and then a decrease. So we're just going to continue to take away 1 stitch when it comes to doing our double crochet portion until this becomes nice and snug around our arm, making sure that we end right after back loop slip stitch row. So I'm just going to do this following row with you guys. So right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're going to chain 3, flip our work, and we are now going to be doing 14 back loop double crochets. Alright, so I now have my 14 back loop double crochets. Now we're going to do a decrease. So yarn over into that following stitch's back loop, pull through, following stitch's back loop, pull through the first 3, pull through the last 2, and then continue to repeat this stitch sequence, making our way all the way around. Close this row off with a slip stitch into that chain 3, chain 1, flip our work, and then a back loop slip stitch row right after that with no increases and no decreases. Now from here, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, like I said, with the same decreases that I just mentioned with you guys, and then I'll meet you guys back right after back loop slip stitch row, right when this gets nice and snug around our arm. Alright, so I am back with my first 12 rows. Now for my first double crochet row all the way until where I finished, I have a total of about 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters. And all we're going to do from here is a double crochet row with no increases and no decreases, and then a back loop slip stitch row also with no increases and no decreases until we make our way all the way down until we are ready to do our cuff. Now this portion is going to be completely up to you. You guys are more than welcome to add more decrease rows wherever you guys want. So I'm just going to let you guys know where I did mine. So I already have my other sleeve all finished up. Now all the way up until where you see this first stitch marker is my first 12 rows. Now from my 13th row all the way down to my 38th row is where I just did rows of back loop double crochets and back loop slip stitches, so absolutely no increases and no decreases in between. And that reaches right about where my forearm is, and I wanted to decrease it just a little bit more to keep it nice and snug. So within my 39th and my 41st row, I did a decrease. And I had a total of 44 rows, and that total length is just about 15 inches or 38 centimeters. And the decreases that we do, if we need to do them, is going to continue on with the same stitch sequence that we did for our previous decrease row. And once we have the length of our sleeve all finished up, I will meet you guys back right after a back loop slip stitch row so we can get started on the cuff. So now that I have my sleeve length all finished up, we're now going to do a back loop single crochet row just to clean up the edge of our sleeve so we can get started with our secondary color. So right after our back loop slip stitch row, we should all slip stitch into that chain space, chain 1, and flip our work. And right after we flip our work, because we do still need to keep an eye out for the ribbing, we're going to be putting 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. So insert your hook into that last back loop from our previous row with a single crochet, and that's it. We aren't going to be doing any increases or decreases, so continue to do this, making our way all the way around. Once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then get your secondary color ready. Alright, so now that our single crochet row is all finished up, we did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now right before we get started on the length of our sleeve, we're going to do a single crochet row with our secondary color, so pretty simple. We're going to make sure that our work is with the right side out, and then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the bottom of our sleeve, insert our hook, insert our secondary color yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now from here, we're just going to make our way all the way around, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. So now that our single crochet row with our secondary colors all finished up, we're now going to make a chain the length that we'd want for our cuff to be. Now I want for my cuff to be a little bit longer, so about 5 inches or 13 centimeters, So I'm going to start by making a chain of 20. And now that we have our chain, we're going to double crochet all the way back down. So block off the last chain and do a chain 3. That doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And then into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, you're going to insert with a double crochet. So go ahead and insert your hook into that chain, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then put 1 double crochet into every chain. Now that we've put 1 double crochet into every chain, we need to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is count up the first 2 available stitches. So here's 1, and here's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to slip stitch into there to close off this first row. Now from here, we need to slip stitch up the following 2 stitches to work our way up to the next row. So slip stitch into 1, slip stitch into that following, and flip our work. And now from here, we're going to be putting 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. So yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row, insert your hook into that back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then just to do 1 more, find the next stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, and then double crochet. Now continue to put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch. Once we reach the end of the row, chain 3, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch again. I'll meet you back at the base just so we can connect it once more. Alright, so I'm back and I've just finished up my row 3, and now we're just going to connect it into the base together once more. So just like how we did the previous rows, we're going to count up the first 2 available stitches. So here's 1, here's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch to close off this row. Then just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the following 2 stitches, flip our work, and then repeat. So put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch, and then that's it. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I will meet you back so we can seam it together. Alright, so now that we have just made our way all the way around the bottom of our sleeve doing our back loop double crochet rows, we don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it together. So first things first, make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out now. And this is going to be the same seam that we did for the shoulder and the sides, so let's get that started. Start by inserting your hook into that first stitch into the front panel, into that first stitch into the back panel, and then just single crochet them together, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're going to repeat everything we just did here on the other side. So we are all back and we have just finished up both of our sleeves and both of our cuffs. Now the next thing we're going to do is our bottom band. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out. We're going to insert our 6mm hook into the bottom corner stitch of our front panel, and we're going to start with a single crochet row with our primary color. So start by inserting your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now within the front panels, we should have some side rows to work into. So we're going to be alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. Into the back panels, we already have stitches, so just 1 single crochet into each of those stitches, and then closing off this row. With the other front panel, alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So since we already know how to do this, I'm just going to do the first set of rows together with you guys. So start by finding our first side row, which this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that gap with a single crochet. Now I'm going to find my following side row, which is this one for me. Insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2, and then that's that. Continue to do this, making our way all the way around. Once we reach the other front panel corner, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then get your secondary color ready. So our single crochet row with our primary color along the bottom is all finished up. Now we're going to do another single crochet row with our secondary color. So insert your 6mm hook into the bottom corner stitch right after we did a chain up of 1 and cut with our primary color. Insert your secondary color yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then just make your way all the way around, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Once we reach this corner over here, I will meet you guys back and get your 5mm hook ready. Alright, so my second single crochet row with my secondary colors all finished up. I have switched my hook out to my 5mm hook, and now we're going to make the chain the length that we want the bottom band to be. Now I'd like for my bottom band to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 8. Now that we have our chain, we will block off that last chain, do a chain 3, that doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook, insert with a double crochet. So yarn over, into that chain with a double, and then put 1 double crochet into every chain. And now that we've put 1 double crochet into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. Now the bottom band is going to be done exactly the same way as our cuff, so I'm just going to do the first few with you guys. So to connect it into the base, we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, and there's 2. Slip stitch into that 2nd stitch to close off this first row. And then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up the next 2 stitches. There's my 1st, there's my 2nd, flip your work, and then put 1 back loop double crochet into every stitch, and then that is it. We're going to continue to do our back loop double crochets, making our way all the way down to the other corner of our front panel with no increases and no decreases. I will meet you guys back right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut so we can get started on the front band. Alright, so we have just made our way all the way around with our bottom band and we are all done. And the next thing we're going to start working on is the inner band. So I've already done one of mine. So what we're going to do is grab our primary color yarn and then insert it into the bottom corner stitch of our bottom band. So I'm inserting my 6mm hook into this bottom corner stitch. With my primary color yarn, I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure. And from here, all we're going to do is single crochet, making our way all the way up until we reach the corner of our neckline. Once we reach this last regular stitch, I will meet you guys back. So our single crochet row is all finished up. Next, we're going to basically repeat the bottom band by doing back loop double crochets all the way back down. So right now we're going to switch out to our 5mm hook, and we're all going to start by making a chain the length that we want our front panel to be. And I would like for mine to be just about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 6. And from here, I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 3 into that 4th chain from our hook or into that chain that we blocked off, put 1 double crochet into every stitch. Once we reach the base, working our way down towards the bottom of our jacket, we're going to be slip stitching it into the base the same way that we have slip stitched it into the base when we did our bottom band. From there, we're just going to do rows of back loop double crochets with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side of our front panel, and then I will meet you back to work on the hood. So both of our front bands are all finished up. The last thing we're going to have to do is our hood, and we're going to start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be inserting our 6mm hook into the top corner stitch where our front band is. And then we're going to start with a single crochet row with our primary color. So the single crochet row is going to be pretty easy. What we're going to do is single crochet across the top of our front band, and we should have just a handful of side rows to work into once we reach the front panel. We're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into there, and then along the back, 1 single crochet into every stitch. Work our way all the way back to reach this corner and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. So go ahead and start working across your front band, and then I'll meet you back once we reach our first side row just so I can remind you guys how we're going to be working into there. Alright, so I've just single crocheted across the front band, and now we have our first side row right here. What we're going to do is insert our hook into that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Next, we're going to find our following side row, which is this one right over here. So just insert your hook into that gap with 2 single crochets. There is 1, there is 2, and then that's it. I'll meet you guys back once we do a chain up of 1 and cut once we reach this corner right over here. Alright, so my single crochet row with my primary color is all finished. Now our 2 following rows is going to help us prep for our alpine stitch rows, and it's just going to be 2 half double crochet rows with our secondary color. So we all want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into the left corner stitch of our front band. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, making sure that it's still our 6mm hook, pull through, do a chain 2, and then we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Once we reach this corner, do a chain 2, flip our work, and then 1 half double crochet into every stitch again. I will meet you guys back when we're about to get started on our first alpine stitch row. Okay, so I'm back. I have just finished up my 2 half double crochet rows with my secondary color yarn. And now from here, we're going to get started on our alpine stitch row, but since this isn't going to have any increases or decreases, I'm just going to talk you guys through it because it's just going to be the alpine stitches until we're ready to seam. So right after we finished our second half double crochet row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Now from here, we're going to be doing our first front post double crochet into the first half double crochet from our row 1. So start with the yarn over, find the first half double crochet from our previous row, insert with our first front post double, yarn over, skip that first stitch because this front post double counts as this stitch, and then half double crochet into the next, and that is pretty much it. We're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around. And this may end a little bit differently for everyone. If it ends on a half double crochet, just chain 2, flip our work, and then do a half double crochet row back. Because remember, each of our even number rows is just a half double crochet row. But if you end on a front post double crochet, make sure that you're combining it with a half double crochet to secure it down. And that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we get the height of the hood that we need, and I will meet you back right after an alpine stitch row so that we can seam it all together. Alright, so I am back and I have just made my way all the way up with my hood. Now counting from my first half double crochet row, my hood is a total of 43 rows and the height is 14.5 inches or 37 centimeters. And now from here we're going to seam it all together. So what we're going to do is flip our work wrong side out. And now this seam is going to be the same as our sides and our shoulder and pretty much everything else. So let's just get the first one started. Once when our work is flipped wrong side out, we're going to be inserting our hook in through the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to grab our working yarn, yarn over, pull through everything, and let's do the first single crochet together. Find that first stitch into the front panel, first stitch into the back panel, single crochet, and then that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, and now that we have just finished up seaming up our hood, we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!